Africa, as you hopefully know by now, is a massive continent, about the size of 3.088 USAs, 2.983 Europes, 0.68 Asias, 14.021 Greenlands, 189,812.5 Liechtensteins, or about the same size as all of Africa. So yeah, pretty massive indeed. So in what seems to be my continuing series on weird geography facts, what are some of Africa's weirdest geographical phenomena? Africa is massive, and, as I already made a video about, crazy diverse. If you don't want to just take my word on that, the African continent has hosted cultures from that of Egypt, to the Swahili city-states, to Ghana, to Congo, to the Zulu of South Africa, just to name about 0.03% of all the examples out there. Africa is so big that Tangier, Morocco, and Maputo, Mozambique are so far apart from one another that Maputo is closer to Perth, Western Australia, and Tangier is closer to Edmonton, Alberta. Africa is also home to the most countries of any continent in the world. No, seriously, Asia has 49 countries, 51 if you want to count Taiwan and Palestine. Europe has 50 if you want to light the comment section on fire, or 51 if you also want to light the comment section on fire, and Africa has 54. So much for Africa all being one big homogeneous country. Africa is also the second largest continent in the world, both in area and by population, only of course beaten by the monstrosity that is Asia. Africa, however, is one of two continents that spans both the equator and one of the meridian lines. Oceania actually spans the anti-meridian, but that's a pretty arbitrary difference. And thus, Africa spans the northwest, northeast, and southeast quarters of the globe, as well as the southwest, if you count the tiny little Atlantic islands like St. Helena and Ascension Island as part of Africa, which they usually are. While we're on this subject though, it might be relevant to quickly point out how Equatorial Guinea, although it encompasses territory in both the northern and southern hemispheres, has no territory actually situated on the equator. So the equator passes through the country, but not within the country. Of the 7 transcontinental countries within Africa, 5 of them are on this list through overseas territories. Britain has the aforementioned St. Helena, Ascension Island, and Tristan da Cunha in the Atlantic. France has Mayotte, Réunion, and the French southern and Antarctic lands, all surrounding Madagascar. Spain has the Canary Islands just west of Morocco, as well as the cities of Melilla and Ceuta, and the Plazas de Soberania to the north of Morocco. Portugal has Madeira, and lastly, Italy has the Pelagic Islands, located not far from Tunisia. Yemen also counts within this group, with the delightfully strange and beautiful island of Socotra. And finally, Egypt is the only contiguously transcontinental country in Africa, meaning their connection to another continent is via land, as long as you don't count the Suez Canal. When you think of Egypt, one of the things you almost certainly think about is, well, yeah, you probably think of a lot of things. Yes, there we go, the Nile. Kind of fitting since the Nile was the only real reason Egypt was able to really be a thing. And indeed, whenever you think of the Nile, either the first or second longest river in the world, you probably immediately think of Egypt, even though it actually spans many more countries. After crossing the Egypt-Sudan border, it splits around the Sudanese capital of Khartoum, a tiny city only about the size of Barcelona, with one section becoming the Blue Nile, with its source in Ethiopia's Lake Tana, while the other becomes the White Nile, snaking through South Sudan and passing through Uganda into Lake Victoria. Its drainage basin, however, extends much further, encompassing additional territory in Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, Democratic Congo, Eritrea, and even as far as eastern Chad. Going into southern Africa, Malawi is a country very much centered on Lake Malawi. In fact, although they don't control the whole of the lake, there are some interesting things going on with its eastern border. First off, in the southern half of the eastern borders, their border with Mozambique goes straight through the lake, like lake borders normally do, though that somewhat awkwardly cuts off Chizamulu and Likoma Islands, which, despite being just off the coast of Mozambique, and indeed within Mozambican waters, still belong to Malawi, albeit held as little exclaves in the middle of Mozambican waters. Go further up the lake though, and we see just how much Lake Malawi means to the country of Malawi, as the border between it and Tanzania goes not through the lake, but literally all around the eastern coast, meaning that Tanzania has a coast on Lake Malawi, but not much more than that. One thing I've noticed about many countries in Africa is how close many of their capitals are to other countries. One example you probably know about by now are the two capitals of the two Congos, Kinshasa and Brazzaville, located right across the Congo River from each other, making them the two closest country capitals in the world. Despite this, no bridge currently spans the waters, meaning people either need to take a ferry or fly, even if via somewhere else. Although, as I am making this video, a bridge between the two cities is actually currently in planning phases. Kinshasa and Brazzaville, however, are far from the only African capitals to be located near their country's borders. In the north of the Congo with Kinshasa is the city of Baraka, located right across the Ubangi River from Bangui, the capital of the Central African Republic, which somewhat annoyingly doesn't actually have the center of Africa within it. Back in southern Africa, Gaborone, Botswana, is also right along the border with South Africa, and the aforementioned Maputo, Mozambique, is also not too far as well. Speaking of Botswana, however, let's wrap this up with one final fact, which is that this region was extremely close to having a quadrupoint border between Botswana, Namibia, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. How close exactly? About 150 meters, the length of the Botswana-Zambia border. Yeah, Botswana was basically like, can I please border Zambia? And so Namibia was basically just like, okay, fine, just a little. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this third installment of milking this series for views. I mean, helping you learn about the world through weird geography facts. Either way, if you want to see more of this stuff when it comes out, be sure to join the KhAnubis Discord server, or perhaps even r/KhAnubis. And subscribe, and maybe also click that bell icon thing if you want, to learn something new every Sunday.